Lars Doucet is a co-founder and president of research and development for the Center of Land for Land Economics, a housing policy think tank, and a previous co-founder of the mass appraisal startup ValueBase. He is the lead maintainer of many free and open source tools in the mass appraisal and property valuation space, including OpenAVM Kit, a modeling engine, PutItOnAMap.com, a GIS mapping and utility suite, and OpenRatioStudy.com, an assessor statistic calculator. He writes for the housing focused site, Progress and Poverty, Substack, and is the author of the book Land is a Big Deal. Daniel is going to help us by pasting the link of his Substack and the link for his book, Land is a Big Deal. Now I'm going to introduce today's moderator, who's also our policy director. Daniel Harrigas is our policy director here at the Parking Reform Network, where he works with our partner organizations to accelerate critical parking reforms through education, organizing, and coalition building, and direct advocacy. Prior to coming to PRN, Daniel was editor-in-chief at Strong Tones, and he's a co-author of the book Escaping the Housing Trap. Daniel has a master's in urban planning from the University of Minnesota, and he lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. So with this all said, I'm going to stop sharing, and please welcome Lars to the stage.
Okay, so.
Long day, and a long day. And I just.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a little PowerPoint I threw together pretty quickly. This is this is going to be a fairly informal presentation. It's assembled from a couple of previous presentations I've done. It's kind of a sampler package of a much longer presentation because I want to make sure we have time for audience questions. So let's just get right into it. The whole point of this is put it on a map that you basically can't tell people anything. You have to show them what you mean. And you can tell more powerful stories if you tell those stories with pictures. And so let's go into this. So you might have seen other organizations create these kind of 3D land value maps. We create these too. And one strategy we have when it comes to like parking reform and other things is just putting this data all on a map and looking at it. And one big thing that we always start with is we show this little 3D map of where the land value in a city is. This is just taking the assessor's existing land values, dividing it by the side of the parcel, and putting it on this 3D map. So this is Spokane, Washington. And you can see that there is this massive, the yellow towers in the middle. And then you can also see this kind of like little green strip here, the commercial corridors. Land value is really concentrated in just a couple places of the city. Over half of the city's land value is going to be concentrated in fairly small areas. Whereas the places people actually live out in the kind of sprawling suburbs are actually much smaller land value. And this has enormous implications for the kind of arguments we can make. And so let me just hit you with the basic argument. This is downtown's land value, right? These are not buildings. This is potential, if you can think about it. This is how much the dirt is worth. The location, location, location. And here's what's built there. Parking lots. Tons and tons of parking lots. So whatever your opinions are about what the urban form should look like, what the numbers reveal, and I can just flip back and forth between these, is that the land value that is sitting under parking lots in a bunch of cities is not only enormous, it's going unmeasured. And so whatever you care about, whether you care about walkable neighborhoods or density or gentrification or all these other concerns, these parking lots that are worth so much money, the most valuable places in the city, are basically holding the city hostage. And so one of the effects of that is all that demand has to spill outwards, right? And when I'm trying to make a complicated argument like that to a city councilor or to a state senator or to an assessor, I just try to focus on these pictures because I can get it across much more simply. Here's what downtown is worth, and here's what's built there. So let's go to this next section real quick. So this is Spokane, Washington. Now, Daniel, you're from St. Paul, right?
Yes.
Okay, St. Paul, Minnesota?
Yep.
Okay, well, let's look at St. Paul.
To me.
Let's look at St. Paul, Minnesota, and let's see where land value is concentrated. Now, St. Paul, Minnesota, I believe, is a twin city. So there's like Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so you can see that really we're only like mapping like half the city here, and that I'm sure the numbers are going to be even higher over here in Minneapolis. But you can see that there is this very strong central effect, as well as this kind of triangular effect of one part of the city is worth a lot more than the others. And even within those areas, it's very spatially concentrated. How much of that is parking lots? Well, we can calculate that directly. You guys have your famous parking lot map over at, and we're going to jump out of the presentation here and go to a live thing real quick. You guys have your famous parking reform network maps that you guys have handcrafted, which are beautiful and amazing and directly inspired us. And so we wanted to see if we could take that basic idea and kind of scale it and price it, importantly. Not just identify how much of your area is parking lots, but price how many dollars worth. So in St. Paul, Minnesota, we calculated that there's 2,600 acres of land that's worth about $500 million that is sitting under these surfing parking lots. And although this is just a screenshot here that we like put in our presentation when we're talking to people in St. Paul, let's go live to St. Paul, Minnesota. So this is our site civic mapper. These are all created from public data sources. And you can see any one of these individual parcels. This shows you the land value of every parcel in St. Paul. And then we extrapolate it by the land value per square foot value. But we can also look directly at parking lots. And if this is going to work, okay, I'm always nervous with live presentations. Here are all the parking lots in St. Paul that we were able to identify. You can click on any single one of these and like identify how much it's worth. So that one's worth 376 in terms of land value. That one's 197. You know, some of these are worth a lot more, you know, 2 million. And you can see that they are concentrated kind of in the areas where you would not necessarily like expect that we should be wasting all the surface area. This is clearly a big commercial corridor. We can see that, you know, there's all this land value, and they are just being, you know, there's just parking lots in the most valuable areas. And the reason why is because it's a tax dodge. Is that when you know that the land value is going to go up over time, doing in a system where we have a property tax which taxes both the land value and the building value, not building saves you a lot on taxes. Meanwhile, your asset continues to appreciate in value. You collect some nominal amount from the parking fees. But if you were really interested in providing parking to the city, you'd go ahead and build a parking deck. Whereas a surface parking lot is really just a way to just park your money. I forget which city we did this, but in one city we looked who the owners of these parking lots were, and over like a quarter of them were from out of state. So a lot of this is just idle money that's sitting under these lots. Now, how do we build these? How can you use these presentations? I want to leave time for questions. So we build these in two ways. One is we just pull OpenStreetMap, which I understand some of you activists are probably going in and hand annotating. The more you can keep doing that, the more you can improve the quality of all these methods. So we encourage you to keep doing that. But OpenStreetMap is this publicly available source. Anytime you've gone to a map application, that's usually what's there in the background. And nerds like yourselves have gone and mapped out where all the parking lots are. We can pull that API directly, and then we can pull the assessor's data. So the assessors tell us where the parcels are and what the values are, and OpenStreetMap tells us what the classifications are, which ones are parking lots. Additionally, there's a more advanced technique which we're experimenting with, which is to calculate the parking lots directly from aerial imagery. And that's a little more fancy. It uses this free and open source computer image model that some online nerds made, and you can just apply that to where is the link? Aerial imagery like this that's just bulk and available, and it will just pull the parking lots out directly from the pixels. And that is an advantage that can improve on just going with the hand-coded information for places that are poorly coded, and also for places like Walmart's, which are technically coded as improved parcels, but 85% of it is just like surface parking lot. So if you can get the polygon from that, you can tie it back to the money value the assessors put on it and be like, well, 85% of this land value is just parking lot. And then anyway, so what we do is that I got to tell you, I know I'm going fast here. I talk too fast. But the whole point of this is that when we take these tools and we show them to assessors, we show them to city councilors, we show them to state senators, they get it. And we lead with this before we go into any of our policy recommendations. And they're just like, wow, I didn't know that so much land value was in such a small part of the city. And I didn't know we were wasting it. And once I can get that core intuition unlocked, then we can start talking about whatever kind of reform we want to do. You know, whether we want to start repealing parking minimums, whether we want to talk about property tax reform, whether we want to talk about universal building exemption or land value tax or any other policies that at the Center for Land Economics I'm interested in. But this is basically kind of what I do with some of my tools. I guess I skipped the entire part where I introduced myself and explained my organization and what I do. But the point is that the next part of the conversation looks like this. I will go to a city councilor, I will go to a state senator, and I will say, what are we incentivizing in our city? Here is an empty lot, and here are 3 buildings that are right across the street. This is in St. Paul. And you say we're in a housing crisis and we want to incentivize housing. And most city councilors and most state senators, their options are very limited. They're only like, okay, we give free money to developers, or maybe developers are bad, so we like try to punish them, or like they don't really have like a really great set of tools. They're like, okay, like tax something less, tax something more, give free money. Like, what do I do? And we can show them, look at what you're already doing in the incentives it's creating. This vacant lot with a couple of cars parked on it, these all have the same land value because they're right in the same neighborhood. This vacant lot is paying 18 cents a square foot in property taxes. This mixed use property with like maybe retail on the bottom and housing on top or whatever is paying $1.62. This single family house is paying $1 a square foot, and this other single family house is paying 55 cents a square foot. And so these yellow, orange, and reds are more what the city says it wants to build, but its own policies are incentivizing more of this, for more people to just grab up land as a financial instrument and do nothing with it. And in all these property tax fights we're seeing, everyone thinks of them as this like cursed, like zero sum game, that it's like, okay, well, we're just shifting the tax burden from one place to another. Well, here's the magic about parking lots. Nobody lives in them. Nobody lives in or on a parking lot. And often the owner of a parking lot, a plurality of them often live out of state. And so when I show them, it's like, okay, here's this big condo building. This is downtown. Here's a hotel. Here's a parking lot. You are giving a huge effective tax subsidy to this parking lot, and you are actively punishing these two things downtown. This is like straight downtown CBD where you actually want the high rises. And for those of you who don't want a ton of density out where you live, if you don't build it downtown, that's how it spills over and gentrifies your neighborhoods. So that's the thing to keep in mind here, is that the more we incentivize these parking lots downtown, the more spillover we get everywhere else. And so we will do models once we have priced these things. We can do models of counterfactuals. Like, let's say we want to push for a property tax system that taxes buildings less in St. Paul and taxes vacant land more. We can show that on average, per class, the biggest loser is the vacant land and the parking lot specifically. And the average winner is basically everybody else, because nobody lives on these things and they're in the most valuable locations. So that's kind of what we do at the Center for Land Economics, is that we basically make presentations like this. We make free tools like this. And we show that our changes for our policies would be progressive. But like, this is all the nerdy stuff that comes later. This conversation is impossible to have if we don't start with this conversation and with this conversation and this conversation. And so that's kind of my spiel. That's kind of who I am. I was a little nervous going into this because I really respect the work y'all do, and I know I talk too fast and everything. But I wanted to leave some time for questions here. So I have more I can go into. I have my tools that I can show you actually live, how to use these tools. I can show you how I built them. I can show you my open source tools. I can show you all sorts of things. Like, this is my own hometown of Bryan College Station. And this over here is a separate tool called Put It on a Map, where you can create these maps yourselves. Not the parking maps yet, but you can create the 3D visuals just with your own geospatial data if you have it. And then this is Civic Mapper. You don't need to pay any money for this. It's free. You just go to civicmapper.org. And we have, let me see how many cities we have. Let me just log in real quick. We have this many cities so far, and we're adding more all the time. And we're looking to scale this to basically almost the entire United States. So if anyone wants to see one of these cities, we can jump in there and look how many parking lots there are. Maybe time to field some questions, just so I can be a little more organized, make sure I'm staying relevant to what people are interested in. Daniel, you want to field some questions for me?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've seen a few dropped in the chat, so we'll start there. I got a couple for you too, probably in my back pocket if we get to them.
Cool.
One that was asked earlier on, and was James Walker in Marion, Ohio, wants to know about a how-to guide for creating these 3D maps for those who already know where to get the data.
Okay, well, I have written an article for you at progressandpovertysubstack.com called Just Put It on a Map. Let me put that in the chat. Let me put that in here. And this is a complete how-to guide. This will tell you how, where you can get the tools. It tells you how everything works. It tells you the whole thing. And then we have a separate site called Put It on a Map. And this has a bunch of tools in there, one to get data, various GIS tools, but the one you'll be most interested in is the 3D Parcel Explorer. You can just drop some data in. So for instance, this is some pre-prepared data from the Twin Cities of Bryan and College Station. And you can just drop data right in, load it up, and if I'm feeling lucky, it's going to all load correctly. There's limits to how big your data can be. Like New York is not going to fit in this, or it'll like crash your browser, but my city's small enough, it can do it. And so there's instructions for how to use all of this in the article. But yeah, this will at least let you create, like if you just want to like create a quick screenshot, you can do that here. We have some more advanced analysis tools, which are like Python scripts and stuff for like doing all the stuff we do in the presentations. But this will at least get you the fancy 3D picture like really quickly. And then the parking analysis, we don't have like an open tool that's like click, click, click. It's like, here's a bunch of messy scripts and you'll need to be a programmer. But that's kind of where we're at the moment. Next question.
Yeah. Alex from Airlines Houston wants to know, on the red, blue, yellow slide showing how local taxes disincentivize productive uses, how is the tax bill calculated?
The tax bill calculated for just what we're looking at here.
Is this the slide, Alex? I assume that's
yeah. Okay. So how is the tax bill calculated? We just pull the assessor data directly. So, okay, so if you're from Houston, I mean, this is St. Paul, so we use St. Paul's data. But in Texas terms, there's what's called the Central Appraisal District. I guess I need to explain this because this is a fairly universal system. The assessor does not actually, in most places, not all, but in most places, they don't set your tax rate. And is that square foot or lot space? It says per square foot here. So the assessor doesn't set your doesn't actually set your tax bill. The assessor it's actually, you would not want them to. They only determine your value. They have one job, and it's to determine the value of your property. It is someone else's job, usually an elected official, to determine the actual tax rate. And you want that separation of powers. You want the person who determines what your property is worth to have like no skin in the game of like raising budget money. And you want the person who wants to raise the budget to have no direct power to determine what any individual house is worth. So the assessor is just a fact finder who basically looks at comparable sales and just appraises you at market value, or as close as they can. And I can go into that whole thing. It's a whole science called mass appraisal that I've been studying for years. And then your elected official sets your tax rate. And this actually creates this weird incentive system where the elected official actually gets to redirect blame for what they're doing to the person who has no power, which is the assessor. So the assessor will catch most of the blame because you get this big notice of your property valuation. You'll get mad at them. You'll get told to go protest your valuation. Meanwhile, your elected official will say, well, I haven't raised the millage rate in 10 years. But if property values go up and the millage rate doesn't change, obviously the budget goes up, you know? And so, but yeah, so we just basically pull this directly from the assessor's data. The assessor's data will tell you the assessed value, it will tell you the taxable value. So often, so either we will recalculate the tax bill from the published statutes and the appraised values, or the assessor will already have the taxable value per parcel and we just download it. And then to figure out the per square foot value, just divide by square feet, and that's it.
Wendy Nash asks, is there anything outside the US, or I would have any plans to do this kind of analysis outside the US?
Ooh. Here is the parcel value, land value of every single parcel in all of South Korea. And down to the individual parcel. South Korea might have the most advanced land valuation system in the entire world. They value all the land in the entire country down to the parcel, and they get it done in 5 months flat. The irony is that they then go on to do almost nothing with it. And South Korea actually is probably the place that's most urgent, that they have a very low property holding tax. They're kind of in dire need of property tax reform. They have, to maybe shift their taxes towards like land holding value would be very beneficial for them. But they haven't done it yet. They have enormous housing speculation. They have enormous economic problems right now, and they have everything they need to, if they could just muster the political will. We wrote a whole article on how to value land the Korean way, which is also in Progress and Poverty Substack. And I am actively working with some people. I'm actually working with the guy who made this specific map to create a 3D version of it. And he showed me a screenshot of what he did just this morning, and it looks really, really cool. Because Korea has some of the most extreme land value concentration in the world. I would like to do this in Norway, which is where my mom's from, but I haven't been able to get the data. Ironically, Europe is actually one of the hardest places to do this analysis because they tend to have the most closed data systems. Everything is kind of by permission there. Whereas in America, there's all these open data portals. You type the name of your city plus open data. We go into that and just put it on a map of exactly how to find the data and download it. But in America, 50 to 80% chance you type in your city's name plus open data and you'll find almost everything you need. And in Europe, it's usually you have to hope that you have a connection, and then you got to file some paperwork and get permission, and then you might not be able to publish what you do with it publicly, which is kind of a bummer. So anyone in Europe wants to fix that, that would be great. Give me a call. South Korea apparently just publishes it all. Not only do they value it all, they also make it available via public API. So yes, a lot of interest in doing work internationally here.
We have a question from Joseph at Smart Growth America. Wants to know if you've had examples of success stories where these visualizations have helped spur parking reform or tax reform.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because one of the things we do is also work on, we're an organization, we have an agenda, we have policies we like, and we're trying to figure out what works politically. So we created this article. So the policy that, let's see, how to enact land value return in your hometown. So we created this guide, basically a political playbook for everything you need to do through coalition building, finding stories to tell, legal analysis, overall strategy, and data modeling, do these things. And this is how you reach out to people. And we've just recently had our first big success. So there've been people who have done these kind of things before we came along. So there's been a bunch of reforms in Pennsylvania, in the previous decades that were able to do the policies we want, and they had a bunch of good effects. But just recently, in both Virginia and Kentucky, we've had enabling laws passed that will allow municipalities to do these, what we call land value return policies. And in Kentucky specifically, it was one of our activists. His name's Jackson Arnold. He's great. He's in our Discord channel. And he basically just reached out to his city council, did this kind of analysis and like showed it to them, and just followed our playbook. And then the city councilor hooked him up with the state level elected official, and they're like, okay, we've got a bill going, we can insert this provision into the bill, and then it passed. And it was like, no muss, no fuss. We were expecting. Meanwhile, I had a big political fight in another state where there were 38 people lined up in opposition against the bill, and it was kind of a humiliation ritual. So you never know, right? Sometimes you've got this huge fight. Other times it's like everyone's like, it seems fine. And then talking about, I actually have some slides here. I did not create this map. This is from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you can see the extreme concentration of land value in Tulsa and along the like in the city center and along the commercial corridors. This was created by a local. This was created by a local guy who was following our blog and using our tools, and he has been creating these things for his own state in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he created like the little red, yellow, blue maps. He created them himself. Just went on Google Earth. And I did mine in Photoshop. He just like created these little polygons here. He like pulled the data and did stuff. He's doing exactly what I've always wanted, which is for people to make my job redundant and just kind of take our methodology and take the show on the road. And so he's now actively kind of pounding the pavement and showing people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, using the tools that we built. And we're trying to get it into Civic Mapper. We haven't done that yet, but we should. We've just got a lot to do. But yeah, so this is kind of the game plan and kind of the approach is put it on a map, get it under the right person's nose. Just basically shots on goal, pay attention and learn. And that's how we're kind of spiraling onwards and upwards.
I'm gonna go out of order because this is a good follow-up to that question, but Daniel's iPhone 17 Pro Max, or I assume Daniel, says, I'm not a coder, but do advocate for this kind of stuff in my city. Can people work with you or your organization to make a visualization?
Absolutely. We do that all the time.
So get in touch. Couple maybe more technical ones. Thomas wants to know how accurate is the UTEL UIUC large parking model if we want to go nuts on our city's total parking acreage. This, as I understand it, is the model for the machine learning model for discerning what is surface parking.
The answer is we don't know for sure yet. It's an ongoing research project. We've been trying to get this funded so that we can answer that question for sure. And the advantage we have through our partnership with the Parking Reform Network is that we're trying to get a funded grant in partnership with the Parking Reform Network, specifically because the Parking Reform Network has hand annotated maps. You guys spent all these years making these beautiful maps by hand. Even though that's like really time consuming, it's very valuable because it's a very efficient and reliable ground truth that we can then test these models against. Now, there is a paper that goes with this format. It's cited here. And I'm sure that has some statistics in there. I don't have those statistics on hand about how, like, what it's the two words in are accuracy and their precision and recall. And I forget which each one means. Like one's false positive rate and one's false negative rate. Those will be in the paper. So if you look up this paper here, a pipeline and NIR enhanced data set for parking lot segmentation, it'll tell you. But I want to basically reproduce the results of this paper on live data sets using the hand annotated Parking Reform Network maps made by hand, and then the ones that we generate using this. And we just need the time and the budget to just kind of scale it up and then write the paper and get that published.
Totally, yeah. And I will say for PRN's part that, we have talked with the folks building these machine learning models, and they have used our parking lot map data sets as a way of validating them.
Oh, that's really cool.
So this is work that's happening and improving all the time. The City of Essex Junction asks, have you integrated parking utilization data into any of your work?
Okay, so Daniel, define what that means specifically. Is that like how much people actually use the parking lots?
If the person who asked that question wants to unmute and clarify, that would be welcome. I don't know if they're here or able to do that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. So the answer is no, because that data is not always available to me, or it hasn't been pointed out to me where I can get that. But I would love to use that because I do know anecdotally that a lot of times these parking lots aren't full. And that would help make the argument even more effectively. Like if someone's got some model where they've stuck cameras over all the biggest parking lots and they just know that on Black Friday, the day where it should be at max capacity, it never goes above 25%. That's like a very valuable fact to have. But I usually don't have access to that data. There's a lot of analysis I would love to do, but for the data. So if anyone who knows where this data is and how I can get it, like, please let me know, and we will roll that into the pipeline.
One question I have, because I've seen this done at a very small scale where it's like 3 anecdotal properties picked out. But
Mm-hmm.
have you done ever any modeling of like a before and after scenario with, a change to the tax system, the adoption of a split rate or a land value tax? Like how would individual properties tax bill go up or down? I
Yeah,
feel like that's a really useful kind of storytelling
yeah.
analysis.
I'm.
Yeah, so that's what that.
That's what this is. This is just the aggregate statistics of that kind of analysis, and we have let's see, GG Miller, LVT shift here. So here is a tool that we've created called LVT shift. I think we have a kind of progress and poverty LVT shift Substack. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, okay. So here's a step-by-step guide. It's kind of outdated because we've updated we need to write a new version of this, but this still basically works. So this article here, want to model a land value tax shift in your city. And then here is the GitHub repo for any of you who are coders. This is increasingly AI viable now, even if you don't have coding stuff, if you have an LLM subscription. We have now set this up so that basically we've written all the core functions to do all the math and to the point where you can almost, in some cases, just point Claude Code at this and be like, find the public data portal for my city, and here's LVT shift with all the like functions. Just glue them together for me and run the analysis because it's almost always the same. The only part that's different is like where is your city's data and like what fields does it have, and you need to like rename them to the standard format. And so Claude's pretty good at doing that. So you might take a look at LVT shift and like Greg's written steps here for how to add a city using an agent workflow. And then what pops out is our standard like LVT shift model. Now you're trusting the assessor's data, but the assessor data is sometimes often like better than people sometimes expect. Not always. Some places have pathologically bad data, and then you need to fix that. And that's a separate conversation. But most places it's like pretty okay and good enough to model a counterfactual model. So yeah, we have another tool. This is more of a nerdy tool, but hopefully the LLMs make it a little easier to use. And our goal is to just, with the resources we have, make all this free and open source stuff as easy to use as possible. Like first step is just make it available at all, and then make it easy for non-nerds to use. And then, but at the very least, if the nerds can just do us a favor of doing the work, we'll be the nerds, you can be the nerds, and then like the non-nerds can just like take it to city council. And never underrate the power of doing a politician's homework for them. That's like our whole theory of change, is that if you are the one who's willing to do the politician's homework for them, then they'll be like, wow, well, it seems like you really thought this out and de-risked this for me. So, and if you anticipate their objections because you've done this 10 times and you've run out of new objections to hear, you can go far. Next question.
That is terrific advice, what you just said. I love it.
Can I share my slides? Sure. No, that's the wrong one. This is the one I want to do. Share this one. Okay. This is the one I'm allowed to share. Let's put that there. Okay. Next.
Thank you for sharing that. Joseph asks, have y'all considered adding a zoning/parking minimum layer to Civic Mapper? And points out that National Zoning Atlas has data on this for a lot of places. Could be useful for advocacy.
It could be, yes. The main thing with that is we just have our hands full with what we've got right now. Like, there's a million things we'd love to add. If you can get some institution to dump some budget on us, we'll get right on it. And the other thing is that zoning is, by its nature, more heterogeneous, even if you're working with National Zoning Atlas. Just we have a data deal with Regrid, which helps a little, but like ideally you want to get directly at the zoning shapefiles themselves. there's like all these things I want to do and like have thought of, and like Arpit Gupta has this great way for like how to take LLMs and point them at the zoning code and break it out into affordances, which you then do left nerd. I have plans. I don't have time and resources, but if I did, I would do many things. Yes, it's a great idea.
Sounds like if you know someone who wants to throw some money at Lars, get in touch. This is really fantastic information, fantastic examples, lots to chew on here. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't see any new kind of substance questions. I guess Wendy in the chat asks, what was the link to the page with the instructions?
Okay, I'm just gonna dump a bunch of
A
links.
bunch of links. We love
Okay, so if you want to go on a field trip to South Korea, there's
it.
that. Then if you just want to put it on a map, there's that. If you want to enact land value return in your hometown, there's that. If you want to hear about two places that just passed our stuff, there's that. If you want to model land value tax shift in your city, there's that. If you want the LVT shift code, there's that. If you want Civic Mapper, there's that. And then if you want put it on a map.com, where did I put it? Just grab it. Yeah, put it on a map.com. There's that. And what else is there? Here's the computer vision model for the parking lots. Here is the it's the, I forget which, the USDA has this like aerial image source that's available everywhere. Might not be as up to date as I like. And then I think I'm running out of stuff. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, another thing we do is we're trying to help the assessors do a better job, and an easier job. So one thing I do is I have this this is a tool for assessors to use, and it just calculates ratio studies for them, which is how they like test whether their assessments are accurate. So for small jurisdictions, you know, so we're always trying to create open source tools and make a friend of the assessor rather than an enemy, and try and show city council that we've just got like some reasonable common sense ideas, and we just put things on maps and slap people upside the face with bar graphs. And that's what we do here at the Center for Land Economics. And we're really inspired by the Parking Reform Network. And, you know, when you point out that, oh yeah, let's look at this real quick. Let's go to Denver. So if you go to Denver, who wants to guess? Hey, let's play a game. How much money do you think is underneath parking lots in Denver? Like in numbers of dollars. Someone throw out a guess in the chat. 2 billion from John Morgan. Okay. No peeking. 353 million. One more guess, then let's take a look. 700 million. Okay. See, Price is Right. It's 3.5 billion. So the winner chicken dinner is John Morgan for guessing the closest value without going over. Yeah, $3.5 billion of land value is sitting underneath parked cars in Denver, Colorado. And here you can see they've got this like kind of weird structure for where the land value is concentrated. It's in these three areas. But yeah. So anyway, I guess we're at the end of time. Are there any more questions? I can stick around for another couple minutes if people want, but I want to respect the hosts and everything.
I think we're probably good here. And I see a lot of requests for a post-event email summarizing some of those links. So
Yeah.
I think there's probably a way to do that through our event platform, Luma. We will try to figure that out. We will get that information to you all. We
Yeah.
got the guest list here in any case.
And if any of y'all want to collaborate, or you want me to talk to your local officials, or you know some grants I should apply for so that I can scale these ambitions up, or you have identified a gap, like, but for a certain kind of tool, you could do advocacy better. It would benefit me to know what that tool looks like, and I can see whether I or one of my volunteers can get it done. Oh, I didn't even tell you guys about probably one of the things I'm most known for is this tool called OpenAVM Kit. I didn't even talk about my side as a mass appraisal specialist. I work directly with assessors, and I'm trying to give every assessor their own in-house Zillow's estimate, Redfin estimate engine called OpenAVM Kit. Cook County, which is Chicago, they have, until me, the only open source AVM, which is an automated valuation model, which is like a modern cutting edge statistical valuation model. Theirs is great, but it only works for Cook County. It's like super specific. This is for any jurisdiction. And if you poll any assessor, they'll tell you one of their top gripes is like difficulty upgrading software, cost of software, their vendors are monopolists, it's too expensive, we don't have enough training. And my friends are starting to get hired by assessment jurisdictions. So now I talk to assessors all the time and I try to give them access to the most cutting edge tools for free so that we can spread the love and magic of open source, because I believe civil servants do better work when they own their own tools and we can all make them better. And that is my whole presentation and my whole philosophy.
Yay. Thank you so much, Lars. You definitely have such a vibe to explain things, and I loved it. So thank you so much. It was a very enjoyable presentation. I'm sure folks agree with me that it was very enjoyable, fun, insightful. So thank you so much for being here with us. And I thank you, thank you, thank you. Please, everyone, like applause. I pasted your land economics Gmail on the chat.
That's great.
Just, anyway, awesome. Okay. So with this all said, please, you can reach out to Lars through that email, and I'm going to wrap things up. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us today. Thanks, Lars. It was a fantastic presentation, and let's keep up the good work. So I'm going to copy paste, sorry, more links but for those of you who are not part of our membership yet, here are the links for you to either RSVP to Luma calendar to see more events and more crossovers like this one. And there's also a feedback form. So if there's something that we can improve on our events, please feel free to share it there. And yeah, this is all. So thank you so much, everyone. I encourage you to unmute yourselves and say bye-bye while I close the session.